Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer DiMarco. I am so glad that you're here and you're able to attend this conference. I know it's not how we had originally planned it would be, but we're all just being flexible with this new school year. Um, and so, anyway, thank you for choosing this session. My name is Jennifer DiMarco, and my session is titled Total Student Engagement, Giving Students Something to Write About Using the Language Experience Approach to Maximize Literacy. The objectives for this presentation that you will leave after viewing it with a better understanding of the language experience approach and the components of the language experience approach, research that supports this, engage in a shared language experience in small groups. So if we were face-to-face, we would be doing a hands-on language experience. We're just going to be kind of talking through that here. Examples of authentic experiences. We'll get to reflect on how you can incorporate the language experience approach into your classroom and adapt it to meet your students' needs. And there should be a handout available that parallels with these experiences that has just some basic templates that you can use. Background on me. I graduated in 2005 with a master's in early childhood education. And in 2018, I added on an administration and supervision and endorsement. And then later that year, I went ahead and added an English to Speakers of Other Languages endorsement. And just recently completed the Shenandoah Valley Writing Project at Shenandoah University. And now, can't believe I'm saying this, I'm currently enrolled at Shenandoah to pursue a reading licensure professional study certificate. So I can't believe I'm saying that. You know, it's like we are living proof of that learning, that lifelong learner. My teaching experience includes, have taught pre-K. I was an intervention resource teacher. I've taught first grade, and I've been an ESOL teacher for 2 years. So I teach in Winchester City in Virginia. The city has 4 elementary schools, and I'm at Garland Quarles Elementary. We have approximately 400 students in our school and about 135 English learners, give or take. So that puts us at about 32.8% English learners. But I didn't just want to include that data. I also wanted to include the percentage of our economically disadvantaged students. And you can see that that's 64.6%. Right now, I want you just to take a few minutes to really reflect. Reflect and write about the English learners in your classroom or one specific English learner in your classroom. How do you reach that student, or how do you reach your English learners? What does their learning look like, and is it different than other students? How long have they lived in this country? What is their home life like? How many people live in their home? And do they have access to transportation? Just some of I want you to start putting yourself in their shoes. Just start thinking about that. If we were face-to-face, now is when I would set a 5-minute timer, but I'm just going to have you pause to write. I'm not going to do the full 5 minutes, so you can pause your presentation, the presentation here. Now, after you've taken about 5 minutes to write and reflect on those questions, I'm going to have you share with a partner. Again, if we were face-to-face, you would be sharing out. And I would right now and go ahead and incorporate a strategy I use with my ELLs. It's a strategy I got from Kate Kinsella. It's called our 4L partners. So with your partner, you would be looking at your partner's eyes. You would be leaning toward your partner. You would use a lowered voice, and you would listen attentively. So we practice this 4L exercise so our students begin using that domain. They're really using their listening ears, but we're setting them up as a listener by engaging their entire body. I model this with my friends, and I go around and I take their picture where I'll say, "Oh, friends, let's pause," and I'll take a picture. Look at our partners here; they're engaged with their 4L partner. So I would use that strategy right now as you shared with your partner. If you have someone close by and you can do that, feel free to take time to do that now. Okay, we're going to come back. So I hope as you talked about this, you were really thinking of what that student brings to your classroom. And we know that students come to us with different backgrounds and experiences, and their background knowledge is different. Their schema is different. We have to build on what they know and what they can already relate to. So with that in mind, I want you to look at this picture. If I said to you, I want you to go through the 5 senses and tell me what you see, smell, hear, taste, and can feel based on this picture, more than likely your background knowledge includes what this is. You may have even been there before. When I did this presentation with my writing project group, every single person around the room knew what this was, and they had all traveled to a beach. Those 5 senses came naturally. They could hear what this picture triggered. They could smell the saltiness in the breeze. They could even taste that. They may even incorporate, oh, usually I have nice cold lemonade when I'm at the beach. They were able to put themselves back in this environment because that was part of their schema. If we did the same exercise with our students, many have not traveled, and that's why I wanted to include that data and of the economically disadvantaged students. So it's not just our English learners. Our students who are economically disadvantaged, they also share, they don't have as many experiences of traveling. So we've got to be more mindful of that. So this was an exercise that would be easy for you. You automatically were able to write about this. If I said take 5 minutes to write about those 5 senses based on this picture, it would probably come pretty natural to you. And hopefully maybe you've even gotten a chance to visit a beach soon or recently. Now I'm just going to make you step a little bit out of your comfort zone, okay? I'm going to have you write about a time that you were able to link straight polymer chains with another substance to form a cross-linked polymer. Okay, when you do this, I want you to list the process and the ingredients you used. Now, I hope you might be giving me this face, right? Because when I did this presentation before, they were like, what is she talking about? So, as often teachers, we're trying to scaffold our students' learning. I'm going to give you a model and a picture to help you relate to this. I'm also going to go ahead and provide you with 2 definitions, one in English and one in Spanish. I have a video also that we can watch just to help you make those connections of what I'm asking you to do. Let's see if I can get this to play. Let's see. I do not know why I can't get this. Right now, I'm just going to bypass this video. So again, I'm trying to scaffold your learning. I'm giving you a picture, I'm giving you definitions, and guess what? You may still have this response. But now teachers, we do this. We think, oh, but I gave them a definition. I even gave it in their first language. I gave it to them in Spanish. I gave them a model. I gave them a visual to help them understand the question of what I was asking. And our students still may have this reaction. Okay. Now, what did all of that really mean? Here is our straight polymer chain. It's going to be linked together by something called borax to form a cross-linked polymer. And guess all of that was just slime. That was our scientific words in terms of making a substance called slime. So again, if I would have done some things differently, you all would have known and would have grasped onto this. But I continued with using just the words, and then I provided minimal scaffolding, and you still probably felt somewhat confused. So how could I have done this differently to make all of that more meaningful for my students? That's when I would have done a language experience with those students, and we would have been making slime. And I would have connected the entire time the ingredient and what that role was in that process. Okay. So I'm going to have you meet someone named Moises. This is a video of a short film entitled Immersion. It's written and directed by Richard Levian. And this movie tells a story about Moises, a Spanish-speaking immigrant in the United States who had been immersed in the public school system in which the targeted language of instruction was English. Okay. So I want you to just think about where we just went with even the picture of the beach to the cross-linked polymer, and now put yourself in Moises's shoes.
We have testing all week this week and next week. The tests are going to be hard, but that's all right because we're going to try really hard. Isn't that right, Cameron? Yes, Ms. Keith. Okay, great. Everyone listen up. So we're going to work all week, get ours from the answer and the information in the story, okay? We're going to go ahead and factual tests and try this actus test. Test your tests. We're going to grade. You got to read? First on page 3.
¿Qué dijo? ¿A poco va a empezar el examen? No, es una práctica.
We're going to take notes from the story and we're going to turn it into a math problem and we're going to walk through it together, okay? So the boy ran 3 blocks. So everyone write 3 blocks. How long did it take him to run 3 blocks? Michelle?
6 minutes.
Very good, 6 minutes. All right, so then we would take 3 blocks and 6 minutes,
¿Por qué el
right?
niño corre con los bloques? ¿Qué? Sí, ¿por qué el niño corre con los bloques? No,
Okay, so the
corre 3
question
calles.
is go on to ask us, how long will it take him to run 20 blocks? What do we do? How many minutes is that per block?
8 minutes.
Try and remember to raise your hand if you want to answer, okay? No, it's not 8 minutes. Michelle?
18 minutes?
Nope, not 18 minutes. Yes, Enrique?
40?
40, yeah, very good. How'd you get 40?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, 40 is the right answer. How did you get it?
I forgot.
You forgot. Okay. Does anyone know how we get 40? Yes, Moises.
40?
Yep, that's right. Very good. Great. Can you tell us how you got that?
40.
Yep, very good. But can you explain to the class what you did here, how you got that?
40.
Great. All right, you guys settle down.
That was so dumb.
Joe, do you want to lose your recess?
No.
Okay, then.
All right. So I don't know about you, but that video is very hard to watch. Everything about what we know best practices are, Moises was not set up to be a part of that classroom and feel good about his learning. It was not in a learning environment that really allowed him to learn and interact and talk. And you could tell there was discomfort on his part as well. So I want to move on. If this would have been presented in a different way, maybe through a language experience approach type of learning, Moises would not have been in the position he was in. Okay. So what is the language experience approach? Move this down. The language experience approach is a whole language approach that promotes literacy through rich shared experiences and connects it to oral language. It was founded on, based on a principle, and this is very important. What I can think about, I can say. What I can say, I can write. I can read what I have written. I can read what others have written for me to read. Now, I want you just to let that sink in. What I can think about, I can say. What I can say, I can write. I can read what I have written. I can read what others have written for me to read. Across the nation, ELLs are more often than not silent in classrooms. A nationwide study found that ELLs spent 2% of their classroom day engaged in academic talk. 2%. And this was included in Breaking Down the Wall, Essential Shifts for English Learners' Success, taken from Chapter 5, From Silence to Conversation. The whole book is set up in, I think it's 9 paradigm shifts on how we're going from one point to a better point, from silence to conversation. And again, these are practices that are best practices for all students. These are essential to our English learners. So how can we get our students more engaged and talking more? At no point does learning look quiet. And so using the language experience approach, it gets kids talking because we have to plant seeds to make them think. So we're going to give them something to think about. We're going to give them something to talk about. Okay. So how do we engage our students in the language experience approach? How can we integrate this practice into our instruction? Here are the steps that Marcia Taylor lists. Choose an experience, organize the activity, conduct the experience, discuss the experience, develop a written account that the teacher writes, read the account, students write about the experience. And again, this can be done in different ways depending on the level of the writer and the grade, and read and share their writing. So at our school, we followed this. We chose an experience, and then we organized it, got everything set up for it. We conducted the experience. That was usually on days 1 and 2. We would read books, fiction and nonfiction books, to go along with that experience. And by Wednesday, we were writing it. And the first part is where the teacher writes. So as a group, we're talking about it. Oh, what happened first? And then the teacher writes that out. the students are not writing yet. So it's the teacher. The teacher is naturally modeling what the students will do the next day or later after, if there's time that day. So the teacher does the writing, and then we read it, because that's connecting our oral language and our written language. So what's written on our board, we're then going to write with our students, okay? And then we're going to give the students the chance to do the same. Sometimes they may just copy what the teacher has done, but they are still making connections. So again, if we were face to face, we would go back to this whole linking the straight polymer chain with another substance to create a cross-linked polymer. We would do that, and we would make that learning so much more meaningful, because guess what? That's what we would have done if we were all together. But we're not. So we're just going to pretend. We are going to pretend, and I would have all of these ingredients organized. I would have it set up. I would have things labeled, because we are making all of these connections with the words we use, our vocabulary words, with literacy. So we're going to have labels around if we did this in a small group, and I would say, friends, you need 1 pumpkin. So I would have that labeled where the pumpkins were. I might even have the word pumpkin written on the pumpkin. And then water, we might have a little cup of water, and I would have that labeled water. The liquid starch, I would have that written, labeled. Glue, that would be labeled. And that's how we're going to be setting up those literacy and connecting the literacy with this experiment. And as we did it, and we made the slime, we'd be talking about how it feels. We would, the kids would be the ones making it. So I might do some modeling on, okay, guys, we need what's inside the pumpkin. How can we get it? Oh, good idea. We need to cut the pumpkin. So we would do that. And then after we did the experiment, that's when we would come back as a whole group, and I would lead the writing. And I would say, we made pumpkin slime. What were the ingredients we used? Oh, can you remember the ingredients? Oh, yes, we used liquid starch, glue, pumpkin guts, and water. Now, I might have this on the board somewhere else where they could turn and look maybe to our whiteboard. And then we would be filling this in more on an anchor chart. So they would be making that connection. They would also have those ingredients in front of them from where they just used it. They may even see where they went to pick up the ingredients. They would see those labels still. So I would have these words that we used all around the room. They also would have been using the words while they were making it. Oh, I would go around and engage in conversation with them. What are you pouring in now? That's the water. Oh, I see water here. So we would keep making those connections. So we would fill in the ingredients. I may even use a different color. So pumpkin, I would possibly use the orange for the pumpkin guts. Water might be blue. Just things that make sense. And it would be consistent with our labels, and they would be making those connections. Okay. I would allow my students, I did this with my kindergarten group, and not only did we write, we then drew. And I said, what did we do first? And they said, we cut the pumpkin. And if they said, we cut the pumpkin, I would write, we cut the pumpkin. I may even draw that first, because it's up to our students. They don't have to write it first and then draw. They may prefer to draw, because that's going to trigger more words. If they draw a picture of a knife there, they would say cut. They might say this is what we used to cut. Maybe not in that form, but And I would say, oh, yes, we cut the pumpkin. I'm also using a lot of hand motions while I do it, just to give those visuals and to support the oral language. So we cut the pumpkin. If they said we cut pumpkin, I would write we cut pumpkin, and then maybe someone else that would say we cut the pumpkin, and then I would add that in. This is all based on their language, because when they read it back to us, it's got to make sense to them. So we cut the pumpkin. And again, they could illustrate to show those words and connect it. I could even use a format something like this. Maybe it would be with a higher grade. We made pumpkin slime, first, next, last. And I'll show you an example. We made pumpkin slime. Notice even on that simple version, I am very dramatic with the spacing between the words. That helps them develop the concept of print and concept of words, so they know one word is ending and another one is beginning. Here is a more detailed version, and it has the first, next, then last transition words, sequencing words. So we would have done this with making slime, but what other language experiences could you do in your classroom? Well, let me share some that I have done with my students. The language experiences that we did in 2018-2019 school year, we went on a fall scavenger hunt. We did a horse and wagon ride, an airport field trip. We made applesauce. We did some pumpkin carving and investigations. We made the pumpkin slime. We went on a farm field trip. We all built a house like the Three Little Pigs. So we were really connecting that with the literacy as well. And we made pizzas, holidays around the world. We visited India, Germany, Israel, and Mexico. We did the gingerbread versions, and we made gingerbread cookies. We planted a bean seed, and we did the caterpillar and butterfly kit. So what I'm going to do, that's just an overview, but now I'm going to go through some of those experiences and let you see how we did those. Remember, I said I taught pre-K. This is a video I had from pre-K. What I want you to really listen to is, just because of this experience that we did of planting a bean seed, I want you to see and listen to the vocabulary our pre-kindergarten students are using just based on doing this experience. I did not have my students or set them up to go over and check on their bean seeds. This was just during center time and free play, and so they knew that they could always go over and check on their plants or their seeds. And you can see that I have some different things posted, but I want you to just listen to them talking. Again, we've got to give them something to think about and then something to say.
Whoa! Look at mine. Whoa!
What's making them grow?
The sun and the dirt.
And the dirt, and what else?
And also
The seeds. And what else do they need to grow?
and weight.
So where should we put it back to keep it in sunlight?
I see some roots like that.
Where are you going to put it now so it keeps the roots? Thank you, Linda. What's helping to eat up all those? You don't want to pull it out though.
So just that experience allowed our students, they were talking about the needs of their plant, um, what was making it grow, and they were talking about the roots. And so there was just so much engagement based on that experience. And again, this was their choice to go over and start talking about it. Let's see, what else? I did this then with my kindergarten group, um, English learners, and when remember the last part of the English language or the language experience approach is to share their writing. And so you can share just within the group, but it's really cool to go out and share with other adults, which is what we did in our school. So they knew often on Fridays that we would be coming around with some stuff to share our writing. So this is a plant journal, Aaliyah's plant journal. And this was their opening. But this opening that they said when they were going around to share their writing, this was something that I said every time they were going to write in their journal. Hey, friends, today we need to make an observation. Oh, friends, we need to record our observations in our plant journal. So we are just naturally using academic language in with these content lessons of centered around the science standard. So that again, we need to use the academic language because that's going to, all students are academic language learners, not just our English learners. So we need to use this language and as if it's to make it very natural for them. So we recorded our observations in our plant journals, and you can see Aaliyah did. And she said, the first thing we do, we put the bean seed inside. The seed is growing roots. The leaf is growing so tall. So we gave them something to think about. We gave them something to talk about. We gave them something to write about. And then we gave them something to read. And these were all familiar words because they were the ones choosing those words to write. And these are the words we used while we were engaged in the experience. We did a wagon ride. So as a school, this was an English learner, all of our English learners at Quarles, we wanted to do an experience where they could all be engaged in. And so we centered it around the past, present, and future standard and talked about transportation over time. And so we did a transportation of the past. That experience was the wagon ride. And you can see some pictures of our students on the wagon ride. And again, they were engaged. This was something they could feel that they had to be sitting outside. They could hear the hooves hitting the ground. They experienced how much slower it was to get around the block of the school when they went on a wagon ride. We then turned this into a present day transportation lesson as well, where we got to take a field trip to the Winchester Regional Airport. And so each student got to sit inside an airplane. We got to watch airplanes land and take off. This was a field trip for K through 4. Our 4th graders, they got to use a vocabulary word of the windsock. They saw one at the airport, and it was so much more meaningful as a weather tool and a weather instrument. They knew what it measured. They knew it measured the wind, but then they got to see why would a pilot use a windsock? How can that help them? So that created more language. That created some critical thinking for our students. Again, this was an experience where K through 4 students were completely engaged. We made applesauce. I did that with my kindergarten students as well as some of my special ed students. And they loved it. Even some of the students who said, I don't like applesauce, they wanted to taste it because they were a part of the process. And so we had, they peeled the apples, or I helped peel them. Then they would chop them up using plastic knives, and we were putting our ingredients in. We based this on an anchor chart. So they were making all sorts of connections. So again, that was the experience. Then we did the teacher writing, then they did the writing, then they shared their writing. So this was the anchor chart. We made applesauce. First, next, last. And then I ended with this question: did you like the applesauce? Yes or no? Because I wanted, on that last day when they shared it out, I wanted them just to have that as part of their conversation after they said, last we ate the applesauce. And then they could say, I liked the applesauce, or I did not like the applesauce. Here we are making the pumpkin slime. They were scooping out the pumpkin guts. We have our friend here cutting the pumpkin. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way. Here's just some anchor charts that you can see. Here's our crockpot applesauce recipe with the ingredients. So I had that posted. Again, we're making connections to literacy. That's also going to help with our speaking, our writing, and our reading. Okay, it helps with their listening as well, because I'm going to point to a lot of those words while I am talking to them too. So again, this approach can cover all 4 domains of for our English learners: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Here we went on a fall scavenger hunt. We made pumpkin slime, so you can see what we would have done had we been face to face. We would have done this. I did it with my writing project group. We had a lot of fun. And you can see I'm making that literacy connection also with just simply labeling those ingredients: liquid starch, glue, water. Here's the template I used for We Went on a Fall Scavenger Hunt. This was at the beginning of the year, so some students just drew pictures. I encouraged all to include text as well. Some may have just copied mine, but we made connections with all of it. We did the holidays around the world. This was, our whole team did this, so it was a lot of fun. We did India, Germany, Israel, and Mexico. This was the 2018-19 school year. Last year I did Mexico, Czech Republic, Albania. I just wanted to use also some places that our students are from, just to again, to really show the appreciation of the diversity in our classroom and how special it is and how we all have traditions. And so it was a lot of fun for them to connect their family traditions with our holidays around the world. But here are some pictures from the year before. Just to engage in a full body engagement and that total physical response. My colleague Jamie, she gave us the idea of the students were going to fly in, because we talked about the map and showed on the map, oh, here's a big body of water. This is called the ocean. We've got to fly over it. And so we would go flying around the room. Then we'd come in for a landing as we sat down in our seat. And we just had so much fun with our Christmases around the world. We did the gingerbread versions, which I know a lot of classes do that. And this brings me on to another point. So some of these things they did again in their classroom. So they may have done the gingerbread versions with their classroom teacher. I'm going to say if you did this before the classroom teacher, that's going to help them build their background knowledge, their schema. So when they do it with their classroom teacher, they have some of those words and they're ready. If the classroom teacher did it first, this is going to then just help them continue to build and use some of the stuff they had already learned with their classroom teacher. Gives them a chance to use their new vocabulary words. You may take it a step further. You can compare and contrast the different versions. And so here's some of the anchor charts that went along with the gingerbread man. We did the labeling of the gingerbread man, and then when they made their gingerbread cookie, they could choose if it's a boy or a girl, and they could use that to help them when they wrote about what they used for the different body parts. So let me share some data. So again, I did this with my kindergarten students, 2018-2019. To the left here, it shows their composite score, their WIDA composite score. And we use the kindergarten WIDA model for their screener. So 24 was in the 1.0 to 1.9 range. 6 was in the 2.0 to 2.9 range. And then for the WIDA Access in March 2019, you can show, this shows just their progress. So we were really pleased and excited about their progress. We had 5 total exit, so that was very exciting. And I have an asterisk here that explains 2 students who are SPED 1.0 to 1.0. And then 1 newcomer that arrived in January went from a 1.0 to a 1.1, and 1 student with a 504 went from a 2.5 to a 1.4. So just, you know, some things that may have happened that day that may not have allowed him to really show his progress. Other 6 students averaged 0.52 in growth in their composite score, and the goal was a 0.7. Here is a quote from Mandy Estep. She is our kindergarten team leader. She said, "The English learners students truly enjoyed all of the language experiences last year. I love seeing their enthusiasm when they returned to the classroom. These students were very excited to tell me about their experiences. I enjoyed hearing them read their writings about their experiences on Fridays. Language experiences are a great way of teaching, and this year we are trying to plan more experiences for all students." Again, these are some of the best practices for all students, but these are essential to our English learners. My principal, Joni Hovatter, who I have to say was always very supportive of us doing these language experiences. She loves seeing the kids engaged and outside doing a scavenger hunt, or when we came and asked about some funding or how can we pull this off, she was always very willing to help us out and support us. So same with our district administrator, Kim Peterson. She was always very willing to help us. How can we carry this out? How can we make this happen for our students? It's about making meaning when you provide the experience. Then it's about making Meaning making, as students talk and write about the experience. Kids have a rich experience. They talk about it, they gather their ideas, place their ideas on paper, then they share it with someone. That's powerful. So I'm going to leave you with a quote, 2 quotes. Don't underestimate me because I'm quiet. I know more than I say, think more than I speak, and observe more than you know. And every student can learn, just not on the same day or in the same way. So it's what can we do to make the learning more meaningful? And I want you to think back to Moises. Think back to how easy it was for you to talk about this picture, how much harder this one was, even when I created supports. But if we were face to face, had we engaged in a language experience, the learning would have been more natural and more meaningful to you. So, how can you integrate the language experience approach into your classroom? And this would be a time where you could pause to write. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. On my handout, it includes my email. Again, my name's Jennifer DiMarco. Thank you so much for joining me in the presentation. And again, I hope you're able to take away some instructional strategies and really understand why we need to do these best practices for our English learners. Yes, they're important to all students, but they are essential to our English learners. Thank you for all that you do. Have a great school year.